So it looks like iOS 18 could potentially be one of the biggest changes from one version of iOS to another. Now, it's funny, I'm not gonna lie, because it seems like every single year there's some change like this. There's some news that comes out stating that the next iOS version is going to be the biggest change of all time. And I really hope that's the case, because Apple does need some interesting changes. There's clearly some things that are going on within Apple that, definitely need some improvements. But in this particular case, I will tell you, with iOS 18, it looks to me that it is kind of time for Apple to go ahead and kind of give us some really big changes within this version of software. Now, I'm not going to lie, Apple did do a pretty good job with iOS 14. So we go rewind back to 2019 or 2020, whenever iOS 14 was made. I think 2020, Apple did a pretty good job with iOS 14. Then iOS 15 was a pretty small kind of update. I mean, it was good in some ways, it brought some things to the table, but it really wasn't like this big change. Then iOS 16 came, and I would say iOS 16 was actually a pretty big change for the most part. There was a lot of cool, interesting stuff that came with that version of software. And then iOS 17 came, and it really wasn't that big of an update. It brought some cool things again, some nice to have updates, some quality of life improvements, but for the most part, it really wasn't that big of a change. If we follow that kind of change log, for the next couple of versions of software, it seems like to me that Apple gives us a big update, then they gives us a small update. They give us a big update, then they give us a small update. We're now, specifically right now, we're in that, bucket where Apple will probably end up giving us a big update. Now, if all the rumors are true, and if this update is a really big update, this means that, in my opinion, phones like the iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max may or may not get this version of software. We're not 100% too sure. If I had to, say in it, I would say completely support it. I would love to see these iPhones still continue to get support. But if not, at the very least, the iPhone 11s, I'm hoping, are probably going to end up getting this version of software, which in and of itself would be a very insane thing. Could you imagine that the iPhone, 11, 11 Pro, and 11 Pro Max get a very big, software update at its end of life, cycle? I'm going to be very curious, for one, how this is going to impact those particular iPhones and these older iPhones, but two, I'm also going to be very interested to see how these particular iPhones, if we're looking at the iPhone, 11, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, if Apple does end up extending these versions of software on these phones, now that phones like the Google Pixels and the Samsung Galaxies are matching in line with these current versions of, software, is Apple going to extend the versions of software on their older phones? It's going to be a very interesting thing to see. And I do think iOS 18, if it does end up bringing a lot of those cooler improvements, I think this has a pretty high likelihood of being the biggest change that Apple will ever create from one iOS version to another, probably since iOS 6 to iOS 7. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens, but that kind of covers it up here. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.